Folks, David Watts here with another quick Luminar video. This is Luminar 2018. I posted a previous video, an introduction to some of the changes in Luminar 2018, part one. I'll try to still make some others, but I was looking at 2018 and practicing just a bit with a difficult image, and thought this might be something that'd be useful for some of your activities and some of your workflows with various images. So this is not uniquely 2018, but maybe it'll also help provide a little introduction to the new product as well. A lot of times what we see on YouTube videos is sort of perfect images and certainly people showing us how to make them better, but sometimes I like to show difficult images that are just far from perfect, and ways we can try to salvage them just a bit. Because let's face it, we're not always in a perfect studio environment, perfect lighting. Sometimes we like to capture an image, and it's just a difficult setting. And this is such an image. This was taken on the tramway in New York City. So there's this cool little tram. It carries you on a cable car, basically. Carries you from Manhattan over to Roosevelt Island and back. And if you have a chance to go, you should. Take your camera. It's a subway ticket, so it's the best $2.50 or whatever that you can spend. Round trip, actually it'll be $5 round trip, or basically $5. But anyway, $2.50 each way. So fantastic though, but here's the problem. As is often the case, dark environment, there's reflections, there's glass. I held my camera right up to the glass, but still, there's reflections, there's other people using iPhones and things, and a lot of stray light, and it just creates a huge mess. Is there anything we can do? Is there anything we can do to salvage such an image and maybe make it at least a little bit presentable? I'm going to clear my workspace here just to show you each filter piece by piece as we bring this together. And I think you'll say at the end of this, well, it's still an imperfect image, but it's better. And that's what we're often looking for. Can we take something that was created in imperfect conditions and make it better? Maybe suitable to share, certainly share with friends, maybe share on social media. What can we do? Do we have any options? Well, first of all, of course, at the time of shooting, if we'd had a polarizing filter, that may have helped. But still, there may be some stray reflections that make it difficult. There's a lot that's challenging in this image because it's very dark. There's a lot of bright spots, though, all the headlights. If you'll notice up here, it's kind of small now in the new version, but this is ISO 12,800, so it's really cranked up high. I was trying to get just enough of a shutter speed to prevent blurring, but very difficult, even though it's taken with a good camera, Fuji X-T2. Still, difficult image. Let's see if there's anything reasonable we can do. So let's start with color temperature. We'll add that filter in. You'll notice in the new version now the filters can stay out here, which is kind of handy, so you can find them pretty easily. They are no longer just purely alphabetized. Rather, they're grouped together, but you can search. I kind of like them alphabetized, but this is still okay. You can find them pretty easily. It's going to be hard to find something that's kind of a neutral gray in this image. This is probably one where we're just going to have to sort of tweak it by hand. And if we go to the right, make it more warm, I think everybody would say, yeah, that's not helpful. So let's try for something realistic, which looks like right about in here. And then we can even play with the tint just a bit. If we go too far to the left, we get green. If we go a little to the right, if we go too far, it gets kind of pinkish. But I think somewhere in here will be okay. Again, you still see terrible reflections, and it just messes up what might have been an interesting image otherwise. But here's what we want to look at. There is now another, well, this filter also existed in the previous version, Luminar Neptune, for example. But let's look at Dehaze and see if that'll do something for us, because it actually claims it certainly helps eliminate fog and haze, but it can also work maybe when we're shooting through glass. So that's certainly this image. Let's see what happens. If we just hit it kind of halfway, and I think we did see a lessening of the reflections. Let me turn it off and back on. It did tend to reduce the reflections a bit. Let's crank it up even more. Usually don't go this high, but let's try it. And it did a pretty nice job. It's still there, but it did reduce the reflections. Now, let's see what else we might can do. And tone is something that may work for us. We won't mess with exposure and contrast just yet. Let's try highlights. And normally this would sort of boost the highlights. And let's again try this at the extreme. We'll give it a second. Try it at the other extreme. And I can't say it did a lot for us either way. Let's just put it back to neutral for now. Let's try the shadows then. Now that's obviously the wrong direction. That makes it quite hideous and awful. But if we drop the shadows, we certainly get a darker image because so much of this image is shadow type detail. But we have eliminated some of those reflections. Let's keep working with it. We'll try the white slider here just a bit. And likewise go the other way. And I think it actually helps to boost it up a little bit, gives a little punch there among the lights. And we did not bring back too much of the reflection. There's still some. Let's see what else we can do with the blacks. And of course, a lot of this image is black, and so we'll have to be very careful about how much we tweak this. But I think we can do a little bit without causing too much trouble. Now, something else. Let's see. While we're here, let's check out the contrast. Now, that certainly has eliminated a lot of our reflections, maybe all of it. But again, the image certainly got darker too. So now it's just a bit of an iterative process of going back and forth. Let's try the highlights again and see if we can bring those up. And we'll again try both ways just a bit. Going toward the left here would generally bring down the highlights, reduce some areas of glare sometimes. I'm not seeing a huge improvement either way. Let's leave it as it is for now. And here, as we move to the right, this would bring up the shadows a bit more. But if we go too much, we'll start to get back into our reflections. So again, it's just a process of playing with it a bit and seeing what we can get away with and how much we can adjust this. The other thing then we can do, what I like to think of is using highlights and shadows and the whites and the blacks there to get the ratio right of light to dark. And then when that ratio is about right, then using something like the exposure slider to try to move it all now in the right direction. And hopefully you can see that effect. Now again, we have brought back some of that reflection, so this is where we might play with it again and just try to knock that down just a bit more. All right, so it's artistic. It's not a perfect science. There's not a perfect answer here. One other thing we could do is bring in the saturation of the vibrance tool. Now you probably know that boosting saturation can look real cheesy and amateurish, and so here's an example, right? That just boosts everything. It just accentuates it too much. Looks like a cartoon. I often, and by the way, with all of these, you can right-click and reset the slider. There used to be in the previous version a little reset icon here. It might be good to have that again, but just know it's not here anymore. But you can just right-click and click reset to restore the slider. I like to typically bring the saturation down a bit. It can create sort of a 70-ish or 60-ish look. It's sort of an image many of us are familiar with seeing from movies or older pictures, just a little bit of the look and feel of the films of that time. And you might say, no, right there is perfect. I like that. Or you may want to desaturate a little bit and then bring vibrance up just a bit more. Vibrance will tend to emphasize those more subtle colors in the image. So either way, what we're looking for is, can we make an improvement? An image that frankly looks pretty awful in the beginning, and it's certainly not going to win any awards, but can we make it better? And I think the answer is yes. Here it is before with terrible reflections, and here it is after. And again, not perfect, but I think a step in the right direction. Probably two other things we can do. Let's remove that filters catalog for now. In the tools menu, let's always try to make sure horizons are straight and buildings are as straight as possible. Over here on the left hand side, I want to keep the aspect ratio at original. And let's just try. Now what I'm doing is just referring to some of the verticals of the buildings here roughly in the center of the picture to give me a little aid, and I think that's about right. We'll click done. The other thing we can do then, let's add one more filter, and under issue fixers, let's add denoise. Now, don't gasp too much when we go into 100%, but you'll see a lot of noise. You can see a terrible amount in these areas, and part of that is because we were at ISO 12800. Part of it is because we've messed around with the slider so much and tried to boost things. But let's try just to take a little of that out at least. And so we just went about halfway. And yes, we're going to get some muddiness in there, but it is a step in the right direction. It is an improvement. We can back it off a little bit. We'll give it a second to process. And yes, there's noise. We expect that. But it's really not as much as we might have expected. So I think what we can end up with is an interesting picture. Certainly not a perfect picture, but certainly an improvement. And maybe that's kind of fun. Take a pretty difficult and terrible picture at the outset and see if we can make it better. If nothing else, we learn, we practice, we hopefully get better, and that's the name of the game. So I hope this might help you a bit. If you like the videos, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. That's always helpful. In the description portion, I'll put a link. We are an affiliate for MacFun and their products. So we'll put a link here where you can order your own copy of Luminar 2018 or order the upgrade if you already have the Neptune version. And it is a good product. I like it. It's probably the best I've seen since the old Aperture days, and I came out of the Aperture world, so there's a lot of similarities, I think, to Aperture. We are an affiliate, so we do get a small portion from your purchase. That's full disclosure. The most important thing to me is not the couple of bucks, but rather to try to share a little knowledge, and hopefully it helps you and makes your photography workflow a little bit better. Hope that helps. Hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye.